Committee, standing in for Councillor Jo Lovelock this evening. She's not feeling very well, and I'm sure we all send her our best wishes. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meeting of the Planning Applications Committee, which councillors are required to attend in person. A number of the planning officers are joining us remotely via Microsoft Teams. Please note that the meeting is being filmed for a live stream available on the council's website, and a recording will be available after the meeting. There is no public speaking at tonight's meeting. Yeah, good evening. Yeah, those of you that know me, my chairing can be a little bit freestyle. So, but because this is the Planning Applications Committee and it's very formal, I should be on my best behaviour, and I'm sure that the officers and lead councillors will keep me in check. So, we've got apologies from Councillor Emberson, who's delayed on a train. First of all, minutes. Is everybody happy with the minutes from the last meeting? Everybody. Also, if you have a vote tonight, put your hands up, and if you could all shout aye or nay, whatever. We'll try and do that. Okay. No. Councillor Carnell, tonight, when you addressing the chairman, you will be grammatically correct tonight. So yeah, chairman. All right. So. Declarations of interest we have from Councillor Ennis on item 14 and Councillor Emberson on item 12. Yeah, if she makes it. There are no questions from the public, as I stated before, and we will move on to questions from question number 1, which is from Councillor Josh Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Reading's residents desperately need good quality warm housing that they can afford to live in. The planning system demands a policy compliant 30% affordable housing to be provided on developments over 10 dwellings. This is often avoided and instead a deferred payment mechanism put in place, where developers agree to pay the council money if their scheme makes more profit than originally claimed. Does this work? Could the Chair please provide the committee with a list of all the deferred payment mechanisms for affordable housing that have been put in place for the last 10 years, along with the payment amount that would have been policy compliant and the payment amount actually received? Thank you. I can't see.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, for your question. The question relates to the requirement in policy H3 of the local plan that residential developments of 10 or more dwellings will deliver 30% of the development as an on-site affordable housing units. National policy refers to the potential for applicants to use viability assessments to demonstrate that delivering affordable housing at policy compliant levels is not viable, and that therefore a reduced provision is appropriate. Paragraph 58 of the National Planning Policy Framework in particular states that it is up to the applicant to demonstrate whether particular circumstances justify the need for a viability assessment at the application stage. The potential for applicants to demonstrate a viability case for a lower provision is also referred to within our local policies, in particular H3 of the local plan, as well as affordable housing supplementary planning document. A policy that did not contain such provisions would have little chance of being found sound at the local plan examination. The approach to viability assessments is set out in the National Planning Practice Guidance. This includes guidance on how various costs should be established and existing used values defined. It also includes a general expectation that assessments should factor in a 15 to 20% developer profit. This approach is reflected in our own affordable housing supplementary planning document. Therefore, it is an established principle through both policy and practice that an applicant can seek to demonstrate a viability case for a lower affordable housing provision or an off-site financial contribution. Where the council to refuse an application that had made a viability case that complies with the accepted approach on the basis of not complying with policy H3, there would be a strong likelihood that the application would be allowed on appeal, with the council also potentially being liable for costs. The viability assessments are always challenged and negotiated by officers. If the viability assessment demonstrates to an officer's satisfaction that a development would not be viable, If 30% affordable housing is provided either through dwellings, on-site or financial contribution, officers will negotiate alternative ways to outweigh the deficit or to reduce the policy requirement to allow some benefit to still be captured. One of these ways is to agree to a deferred payment mechanism. A deferred payment mechanisms are a standard tool used by local authorities and are well accepted across the industry. A deferred payment mechanism can be used when it is anticipated that sales values may increase or building costs drop, leading to an increase in actual profit that can be shared between the developer and the council to top up the initially low on-site provision of affordable dwellings or off-site financial contribution. It is accepted that agreeing a deferred payment mechanism is a risk, as an increase in profit is not always guaranteed. However, it provides the commercial basis for achieving policy compliance while allowing housing, which is good quality and in all other policy respects is acceptable, to come forward in the meantime. I have attached a table of these planning decisions made over the past 10 years where a deferred payment mechanism was agreed and the outcome of those cases. Okay. Have you got a supplementary, Councillor Williams?
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, thank you for reading that out, Chair, and best wishes to Councillor Lovelock, who would have read that out. She's been well enough. My question was whether the process is working, and I'm trying to get my head around this table, but thank you very much to you and to officers for providing it, but it is colour coded. I'm trying to understand it. It seems that a third of the applications have been built and have started to the extent where we can now ask for a payment. And from that third, we're around £1.5 million down on what would be policy compliance. I hope I've roughly summarised that correctly. And we know that the Tory government is failing on affordable housing. Is this working here in Reading for residents, Chair?
Yeah, well, I didn't just read it out, although I did read it out. We had some input into the answer, of course. It's my take on the table is obviously and bearing in mind I'm colourblind here, the bottom green bits, yeah, the ones that haven't kicked in yet. And also, I mean, there is a note on the explaining the maximum value and what it refers to. And my take on that is, as with all things, these are a negotiation. You've got the viability, the volatility of the market, and of course you would have an expected maximum, and therefore I would put it as an expected minimum. Therefore, there would be an average. So when we're looking at these figures, I would take it there would be a median figure. That's quite hard to come, to explain and probably work out, but it should be taken into consideration when we're actually looking at these figures, because they probably look a lot worse than they actually are. Also, as it states, it's a way of getting affordable housing. Interesting that you mentioned the government. I just noticed that the Green Group in Brighton have just come out in support of scrapping the government housing targets. So, do you support this? So yeah, that's it. Thank you, Councillor Williams. So, question 2, or round 2 as we call it. And I've lost it. Where is it? Councillor Hornsby-Smith. Yes, later. All right. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I note that the first half of the answer is the same as the first half of the other answer, so I don't expect you to read it out if you don't want to. My question is, what percentage of approved planning applications regarding housing development have met 30% affordable housing contribution threshold since this policy was adopted as part of the local plan in November 2019?
Thank you for your question. Thank you for allowing me to skip through the 1, 2, 3, 4. First 4 paragraphs, yeah, so okay. It's also worth noting that where a development is genuinely not viable, it still seeks to provide policy compliant affordable housing. It is unlikely to ever be delivered. It is unlikely to ever be delivered. In such a case, accepting a reduced level of provision is the only way to secure any additional affordable housing, as well as boosting housing provision overall. In terms of a specific information requested since the local plan was adopted on the 4th of November 2019, there have been a total of 21 planning applications approved for 10 or more dwellings, to which 30% requirement is 30% requirement of policy H3 of the local plan applies. This, excuse me. This excludes application for prior approval under permitted development rights, those ones that fell under all sorts of Article 4s and stuff, where there is no ability to require affordable housing. Of the 21 total permissions, 8 have been subject to the requirement to provide at least 30% affordable housing on site. This represents 38% of all applications. However, a number of these permissions have been local authority new build, for which the purpose of the development has been the delivery of affordable housing. If local authority new build schemes are excluded, there are 7 total permissions and 4 exceeding the 30% requirement, which represents 24% of the permissions. Have you a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So if I read this correctly, we are looking at less than a quarter of eligible developments outside of local authority builds. So I think my ask or question for the rest of the committee is I think we need to bear that in mind, that we do not consider this continue this path towards such little affordable housing not meeting our policy threshold. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the questions that come to PAC are purely information questions, and you know, this is about policy, and we are this came in November 19, and the local plan is under assessment now to be redrawn by November 25. We got loud then, didn't it? November 25. So of course we will look at policies, and we've got changing demographic. COVID's changed a lot. The market's changed. You know, we've got an aging population, but also an aging population that are younger. The 70s, the new 50. You know, and stuff like that. We need to look at housing totally different and move forward. And as you know, we work within the planning framework, and you know, and sometimes steering planning policy can be like steering an ocean liner with a paddle, can't it? It takes time, and I'm sure Mark, is he? Oh, Mark Warrenham, I thought he was here. Obviously, is doing a wonderful job assessing new ways and means of getting the maximum affordable housing for Reading families. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Page 15, potential site visits.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a few little updates for you here. You've got 2 new applications to consider there for site visits. 221345 is the Curzon Club at Oxford Road. Officers are not suggesting members visit that site. I think you can see it from well enough from public vantage points. The next one, 221693, is Row Court. Officers are recommending a site visit accompanied to come up probably at the 26th of January visit. And I do have an update for the committee on the other ones on Appendix 2. 220189, that's the land at Henley Road. That will need to be accompanied because the case officer advises you need to see the site from the rear. There's no date for that yet. 220409 Caversham Park, again, that would need to be accompanied. There's no date for that one yet. 211714 70 to 78 Wokingham Road, we're hoping the end of January, so 26th of January for an accompanied site visit. 220123, the next one is 9 Eldon Square. We're expecting end of January accompanied site visit. 221405 Battle Street, that's the old Central Pool site. You'd resolved for there to be an unaccompanied briefing note to be produced. Case officer is aware of that, and that will be produced. 221466 Stone Point, at the same committee, again, you agreed for there to be an unaccompanied briefing note. The case officer has told me that will be released very, very shortly. And the last one on the list is 221324 Caversham Road, the old Carter's site. that should be an accompanied site visit, and we're hoping that would be early January. That would be the 5th of January. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hornsby-Smith.
Yeah, just a quick one. On the Caversham Park, I got a phone call from them about a week ago now, asking me to go to an exhibition that they're hosting tomorrow. I just wanted to get some advice, really, because if we're doing a site visit separately to this, would it be ill-advised to attend an exhibition unaccompanied, or would you suggest why go to the exhibition for what it's worth and then come on the site visit as well?
It's difficult for officers to advise. It's going to be for your own discretion, but I think if you keep an open mind on that, I mean, we've got an active planning application. There's no reason why you couldn't attend.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? Okay with that? Right, okay. Planning appeals. No, it's not, sorry. Yes, it is planning appeals. That's Julie.
I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take this.
Sorry,
Thank you, Chair. It's okay. Normal report that gives you the appeals lodged and the appeals decided. We've produced a number of reports this time. Orchard Grove, the Moorings, 11 White Knights Road and Abbey School. Nothing to add from officers unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Anybody? Pleased to see you taking some enforcement on the Moorings one, by the way. I think it's a good message to put out to the public that we're chasing these things up, illegal development, such like. Thank you. Right. Item 6, applications for prior approval.
Nothing to add from officers, Chair.
Okay. Noted. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Page. Item 7, proposal for locally listing 62 Tarless Road, pages 45 to 62.
Chair, I was wondering if we bringing forward item 14, the tree item.
Oh, no, well, that was part 2 we were going to go for, I think.
You're going to leave it part 2?
First item, part 2.
Okay. Apologies.
Okay, so 62. So who's the officer leading on this?
I think most of the information on this item is in the report, but I fully support it as one of the nicest residential villas in Reading. The history is in the report, but I think the picture is self-explanatory. It's one of the quality buildings that are around, mid-19th century residential. It was the home of a dentist. I don't know if that's good or bad. And I'm open for questions.
Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. And I was pleased to see this come forward because I think it is in part celebrating the some of the lodges and the substantial villas that were built in this time period. I am minded, though, to ask, while I think that it all stacks up, it makes sense. This is definitely something that within this area that we should definitely locally list because of its presence in the intersection there and its presence in that part of town and part of the continuing history that tells the story along with 24 Southcote Road there. Also, it tells that proud history. I do kind of question the fact that in the architectural interest section, we have got, you break that down into your sense of place, A, B, the innovation and virtuosity, number C, the group value. I would propose that the group value of this site, when taken in conjunction with the coach house that was once part of this property, is of importance and note. I just know visually when I'm driving past that property, I see the two and I see that little coach house, although the fence is fairly high, and I get a sense of larger area and of what that used to be, even more so. But whilst so I'm questioning whether that shouldn't have been considered, but I'm also very eager to ensure that we do get this listed, because the facts are here and the evidence to me is fairly compelling. I might also question as to whether in the sense of place that we didn't check point I, whether the building or structure is representative of style that is characteristic of Reading, because it describes in the narrative also that this is very unique in that time period with the polychrome work and all of that. So I would question whether that shouldn't have been checked. And also item triple I there, that the building or structure says innovation in materials, technique, architectural style, or engineering. Could possibly give way on that one, because point I, the building or structure has a noteworthy quality of workmanship and materials, may take that into consideration. But so I'm essentially questioning whether we shouldn't also consider point I under A, and possibly point 3 under B, and then C, point I being the group value. But I would come back. What I'm going to recommend is that we take this and we approve this and we agree on this tonight. But I would ask that officers might go back and possibly come back to us with the idea in a separate report to add on the stable block or the coach house to increase the group value of this. So that's where I'm at on that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rowland. Anyone else on this? Second that. So we're agreeing to accept the recommendations on the advice of bringing it back to look at the coach house. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, do you want to round up, Bruce? Sorry.
Yeah, the stables are actually on the adjacent property, which is now school. So that's probably one of the reasons it wasn't identified. Oh, well, it was identified, it's in the report, but I agree with the recommendation.
Okay, that's good. Very good. Karen, sorry, Councillor Rowland.
So Chair, just for clarity, then we would want then a second report to come back that would possibly add on to that. And then you go through the normal consultation consultation procedure of asking that property owner, that being the school that owns that coach house, because that's a proper consultation procedure, and then this could come back for an addition. Am I correct on that?
2 months.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay. Get that, Richard. Okay, agreed. We can move on. Excellent. Thank you. I've made a bit of an executive decision on the next one. In part 2, it's we're going to bring item 13, I think, because it is 13. Oh, is it 14? Is it? Sorry. 14, the trees on Grovelands Road, because Councillor Ennis is such a valued member of the PAC committee. I want to get him back in as quickly as possible. Yeah. 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 He's got to get out of the room. Yeah. So, okay, item 4. That's what I said. No, sorry. First time in this chair in this PAC committee. It's quite nerve-wracking, believe it or not. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's my glasses. Sarah.
Right. Okay. Hi, good evening. Thank you for bringing that forward. So as explained in the report, officers are not delegated to make a decision on tree work applications.
Sorry,
By
got the wrong one up.
I carry on?
No, we should be on item 14.
Sarah, is there a slide for your
Yes, there is.
item?
I saw it just a second ago. I don't know what it flipped to it and then back.
I withdraw that statement that said this was an executive decision by me. By
If we can't find it, there's the photo on the agenda on
Yeah.
page 312.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we'll move to that.
right. I'll carry on then, shall I?
Yeah.
Okay, so as explained in the report, officers are not delegated to make a decision on tree work applications where the applicant is a councillor, as is the case in this application. Hence, approval is sought from committee as required. The proposed works are detailed in 4.1 of the report. These are considered to be appropriate tree management works and not harmful to the future health of the trees, and as such, the recommendation is to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any agreed? Now, no, don't get me out. I just want to look passing comment. It was I don't know whether anybody knows that area particularly well up the top of Grovelands, but during elections we have vote Labour signs all the way along there, which I put up, and they always say, "Don't touch the trees. Whatever you do, don't touch the trees. You can't brace them off the trees." So there you go. And they always tend to blow over, or people walk past, possibly greens, and tear them down. So there we go. Anyway, thank you. Councillor Ennis can come back in now. So. Welcome back, Councillor Ennis. We moved on back to the original format. Item 8, 62 Goldsmith Road. So, Steve, isn't it?
Okay, Chuck, do you want to present to us, please?
Yeah, okay, I was waiting for the slide. Thank you, Chair. The application site is a two-story semi-detached dwelling within the Castle Hill, Russell Street, Oxford Road Conservation Area. The dwelling has an existing single-story rear extension. The dwelling is not considered to be of any special architectural or historic interest and makes a neutral contribution to the conservation area overall. The surrounding area is largely residential in nature and is characterized by a range of large detached and semi-detached properties, as well as large blocks of flats. Only the western side, where the site is, has been developed for housing. The right-hand side is the back of Clifton Road Gardens and garages. The scheme proposes a part single, part two-story rear extension and change of use from a 4-bed C3 dwelling to 6-person, 6-bedroom HMO. The existing rear extension with a depth of 3.4 meters and half the width of the original dwelling will be demolished to facilitate the proposal. The extension will cause an increase in depth of 4 meters from the line of the original dwelling, that is 1.6 meters deeper than the existing extension at the ground floor and 3.5 meters at the first floor level. Whilst the ground floor extension will stretch the full width of the original dwelling, the first floor aspect is racked back approximately 3 meters from the patio wall with the other half of the semi, that is number 60. As the application site is not within the Article 4 area, which would have removed permitted development rights to change the use from a C3 dwelling to a C4 small HMO, the proposed change of use does not require planning permission in its own right. However, for completeness, not only has it been assessed against policy H8 and further guidance set out within the adopted residential conversions SPD 2003, it has also been assessed against the threshold guidance as set out in Part B of the SPD, which in summary, the guidance states that the planning permission will not normally be granted where the proportion of HMOs, either C4 or sui generis, will result in HMOs representing 25% or more of the residential properties within a circle of 50-meter radius, measured from the application site. Having undertaken the threshold calculation, it has been determined that there are 17% of properties within the 50-meter radius, which are in HMO use. In terms of other areas of assessment of the HMO use, including communal space, sizes of rooms and stacking, as well as internal amenity, it has been determined that the change of use meets policy requirements or could be achieved by way of conditions as stated in the reports. With regard to the extension, this is considered to meet relevant design and amenity policies as set out in paragraph 6.20 to 6.27 in the committee report. Now, I would note that there's a fallback position because although the application description includes for the change of use to a small HMO and the assessment has included reviewing the HMO use, it needs to be reiterated that significant weight should be given to the fallback position, namely that the use as a C4 small HMO could commence without requiring any formal permission, and it's only the extension that requires planning permission. So the scheme overall has been assessed as acceptable and it is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and informatives as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your representation. Councillor Page.
Chair, thank you. The slight problem we have here, and I plead a lapse here on myself and my colleague, is that an application was granted consent last year, which is referred to. That was dealt with under delegations. And it was, if anything, a somewhat inadequate approval because many of the conditions that are proposed this evening did not feature in that consent. So this application could be regarded as an improvement because of the raft of conditions that are required here. The noise insulation stuff, for example, wasn't even referenced in the condition last year, but that's water under the bridge, mea culpa. We should have picked that up. That application that was approved by the Borough Council and isn't referenced in the report this evening other than in the application number included the ground floor configuration that has now been changed, and that's the kitchen and social area, which if you turn to page 75, now shows what was a combined social area and kitchen, effectively as one use, has now been changed into two. And there's no reference made to the fact that the kitchen has no natural daylighting and apparently no ventilation either, because the wall on the right-hand side is the wall that runs along the semi-detached. So there's no windows or ventilation, no opportunity whatsoever. That isn't referenced or conditioned in the report. So, Chair, what I would like to do to save time this evening is to propose a deferral of this report to enable officers to report back and possibly propose additional condition or conditions relating to this new kitchen area, which, as I say, would appear to be completely enclosed, unventilated, unlit, other than perhaps a light bulb, which I presume will be there for the benefit of the inhabitants. But certainly the previous arrangement would have allowed ventilation through the social area, or perhaps not entirely satisfactorily. There are other elements that both Councillors Rowland and I have concerns about. And by the way, for the purpose of accuracy, the call-in referenced in paragraph 1.4 was Councillor Rowland and Councillor Page, not Councillor White, who, although he is quite cavalier about trespassing all over other wards, on this occasion didn't. So the email that was winging his way to him was fortunately cancelled. But we do also have concerns about the layout and stacking elements, which we won't debate this evening because I'm proposing that deferral, Chair, specifically for officers to come back on the issue of the kitchen. I'm not sure whether we wanted any other information. I think that was the main information, which I think is important because the kitchen is of fundamental importance to people living in an HMO. We can have a debate about all the other stuff that the officer has rightly referred to, but this is absent from this otherwise very comprehensive report. So I would propose, Chair, deferral for that.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're... Oh, sorry, I'm so used to being on the other side. Thank you, Councillor Page. I think we can hold off on the comments till next time round, Steve. Yeah, you okay with that? Yeah, okay. So as a committee, we're agreeing to defer this and bring it back after seeking information. Aye. 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 Good. Okay for that. Thank you. I also keep turning my mic off, or I can leave it on now, can't I? Right then, item 9, Queen Victoria Street, 145, 148 Friar Street. We've also got representatives in the public gallery. Evening. Thank you for your hospitality on the site visit, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This item number 9 starts at page 81 of your agendas. There's also an update report starting at page 5, which provides an updated recommendation now that sustainability and energy matters have been resolved. Members will know that 4 further conditions are now recommended, with additional wording to 12 other conditions too. This follows discussions with the applicant in the past week and also relates back to the sustainability and energy matters. The application site comprises a series of buildings fronting onto the south side of Friar Street, including the Grade 2 listed number 148, and also the separately listed terrace of numbers 1 to 15, Queen Victoria Street, on the west side of that street in central Reading. Buildings are predominantly basement and 4 stories in height, with a variety of retail and related uses at ground floor, and largely vacant offices above. You will note that here that the parent company of the applicant also owns sites to the west, which is subject to separate item number 10 on your agendas this evening. As per the main report, officers note that these have been submitted as entirely separate applications and must be considered on their own merits. Furthermore, the application before you has similarities with a separate proposal relating to part of the site, as resolved to be granted by PAC in June 2021. Legal agreement is yet to be completed in relation to that proposal, and the current application should be judged on its own merits. As shown here, you'll see the various references in the report to the 2021 proposal as Queen Victoria Street 1, current proposal is QVS 1 plus, and the neighbouring site is QVS 2. So this application seeks full plan permission and associated listed building consent where relevant for a variety of redevelopment works, including demolition of a variety of buildings and structures, including the entire demolition of number 146 Friar Street, reconfiguration of the basement and ground floor use on Friar Street and Queen Victoria Street frontages for Class EA and or Class EB uses as per the main report. Also the change of use and various extensions, and then also a replacement basement and 5-storey building at number 146 Friar Street, which are all to facilitate a 104-room apart hotel and the provision of a public courtyard accessed off Queen Victoria Street. So proposed land uses are considered appropriate, subject to a number of conditions, and the apart hotel use being secured via Section 106 legal agreement. Turning to the proposed extent of demolition, officers are satisfied that the works would protect and enhance the heritage assets. With regards to scale and massing, no changes are proposed on Queen Victoria Street, with the changes on Friar Street limited to numbers 145 and 146. Whilst acknowledging that the proposals would reduce the variety in height of buildings along this stretch of Friar Street, the additional scale and massing at this point is not considered to be harmful to the character or rhythm of the streets, nor the setting of the neighbouring listed buildings or the existing locally listed Bugle Public House. So another significant element of the proposal involves the proposed public courtyard. Whilst there are considered to be shortfalls in comparison with that proposed under the QVS 1 scheme, notably the provision of only a single rather than two external entrance points, and the more enclosed nature of what is a smaller space, however, on its own merits, is an overall welcomed addition, assisted by a comprehensive management plan to be secured in full via condition. In overall terms, whilst the officer report does identify some harmful impacts, officers conclude that the conflicts of the development plan are outweighed by the benefits of the proposals. These include the visual improvements both Queen Victoria Street and Friar Street, the provision of the public courtyard, and then also the introduction of the proposed apart hotel use. As such, full plan permission is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and Section 106 obligations summarised within the reports. Separate listed building consent is recommended for approval too. Thank you.
Thanks for all the work and that you put into these reports. It's anyway, talking like I'm on the committee. So, any councillors? Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. As a town centre ward councillor in Abbey Ward, along with my colleague here to my right, Councillor Page, I know that we both welcome the proposal here this evening and thank the group for bringing this forward and really giving this town that really is a city in all but name something that we really deserve. And this is the kind of development, the paying attention and respect to heritage that really can bring a site into existence that Reading deserves. And the view coming up from the train station, that drawing into the town, the respect that indeed the developer is proposing and is paid through its intense and very welcome consultations with the heritage community and other civic society groups has been very welcome and is bringing forward a heritage improvement to a really lovely set of listed buildings. I mean, I will note in particular too, the facade on Friar Street and the fact that they are actually looking to reconstruct and carry around above what's now Cafe Nero, at least I believe it is, to kind of reinstate that those windows and carry them on around is exemplary of the type of work that we look for in a really positive and thoughtful heritage development. So I'm really pleased with this and am happy to accept the officer recommendation on that. Thank you.
Councillor, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I was at the site visit and as a long-standing resident of Reading and now a new councillor, one of the things residents say to us as local councillors is, how are you going to improve the way the town looks, but particularly to visitors? So this development, I think, once completed, will be one of the first things residents or visitors see when they enter the town and they walk, as Councillor Rowland says, from Friar Street from the station to Friar Street. And I think the fact it preserves the listed buildings, and then with the next item on the agenda, with the additional site incorporating the Bugle, I think it tidies up the area nicely.
Councillor Page.
Yeah, Chair, can I too very much welcome this application, and obviously the next which we'll be dealing with, as Jonathan Markwell rightly says, they need to be treated separately, but one must express the hope that given the amount of work that the owner owners have invested in these sites, that they will both come forward in the way that's envisaged. And I certainly thank the applicant for the very colourful summary that we were all emailed on the 6th of December. And the back with the summary, the project vision summary encapsulates the enormous benefits to the town, and certainly the fact that the opportunities for independent retailers features in this development, and the maintaining the activity and diversity at street level is so essential, not only to our centre but to all centres. That seems to be the trend post-COVID, and one that hopefully we will see here. And the public realm as well, with what are described as new laneways and public open spaces, will add to those attractions. And certainly the long overdue investment in above the ground floor is to be welcomed. And some of us went on a site visit a few years ago to the area that's currently scaffolded in Queen Victoria Street, and saw the enormous potential for the residential revival in the centre. I just wanted to pick up, firstly, to compliment the applicants, not only on the way they have worked with the Borough Council and the planning officers, and to thank Jonathan and other planning colleagues for the work that they're put into this, but also in engaging with the Conservation Area Advisory Committee, the Civic Society, and many other individuals. I think they've taken that side seriously. Some developers do it very perfunctorily. That has not been the case here, and I think it's been a benefit to the application. 2 points I wanted just specifically to highlight in the report. Paragraph 6.22 on the public art element, which arose from the CAC submissions, and the paragraph references a preoccupation condition for details of a public art scheme, which I think will be welcomed. I would say to the developers that a water feature might be nice, but I will always bang on about that. It's not being conditioned specifically, but looking at the public benches, if they could make a note of that. Anyway, that's very welcome. And the other point I just wanted to pick up on, which has wider importance in the town centre, is the crime references in paragraphs 4.52 and 4.53, and it relates to the CCTV linkage to the wider town centre system, which of course is based literally just behind that wall there. It's rich for the police to make the comments that they have done, bearing in mind that they've been stripped bare of resources, and there's little evidence that the Police and Crime Commissioner wants to move resources back into urban areas such as Reading, given the high level of tractor thefts that he seems to be prioritising elsewhere in the Thames Valley. But providing we do have some resources to monitor the CCTV, these recommendations are important, because creating a sense of security throughout the town centre is essential. It's of commercial importance to developers. I know they aren't in any way opposed to this, so I'm making more of a wider comment that in terms of the regeneration of the town centre, investing in that essential CCTV coverage is only of value if it's backed up by police resources. So thank you, Chair. I very much welcome this application.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question from me, I think. I'm sure the colleagues that have already spoken are quite right. I don't understand the need, the commercial need for apart hotel units in Reading, but that's my own commercial naivety. I'm sure the applicants know exactly what they're doing. I'm sure some of these units will be filled with people coming to work, not just in Reading, but in the much wider area in IT, telecoms all over. What is the reason for the 3-month limit on occupancy? I realise there has to be some kind of limit, otherwise these have effectively turned into full-time flats. I was just wondering what was the rationale behind 12 weeks, for example?
Thanks, Councillor Williams. I think you partly answered your own question in there, but essentially, yeah, 3 months is kind of the standard for kind of hotels, apart hotels, and it has been for as long as I know. So it's an established and known reference and date point, which is used widely.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Markwell for the impressively detailed report and update pack. It's probably one of the most detailed ones I've seen since becoming a councillor, so well done on that. I also think it's absolutely brilliant to see his application. We're seeing, after the pandemic and during the cost of living crisis, we're starting to see the hollowing out of certain town centres across the country, and actually seeing something that develops something of note is really helpful. I really love the courtyard and the extra shops going to be there. I think that's really great. That's a great little, hopefully it'll be a little hidden gem in years to come. So I support this application. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just round up. I'm going to round up with a couple of comments for myself, and this isn't in any way sort of predetermination. I went on the site visit, found it quite refreshing to meet a developer who's willing to listen, you know, and negotiate, and they've done a good deal. I'd like to see a good education and skills plan come forward. Courtyard, as Councillor Moore said, is absolutely fantastic, and we'll be leading on to the other the other application as well, which is obviously closely linked. There used to be an arcade, you know, with the old fruit machines and that across the road. It was called Quicksilver, and I genuinely believe that this developer is looking to invest and not just be looking for the Quicksilver. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, sorry. So, councillors, do we agree to the recommendations? Aye. And the supplementaries. Oh, I forgot to ask, did everybody get their physical update packs? Everybody got them, yeah? Okay, cool. Should have checked on that at the start. Right then, moving on to item 10, and it's 138144 Friar Street again.
Thank you very much. So this item 10 starts at page 141. There's also an update report starting at page 15, which provides an updated recommendation now that sustainability and energy matters are being resolved. This facilitated 3 further conditions now being recommended, with additional wording also proposed to 1 already recommended conditions. Members should also note that 2 additional public consultation responses have been received, albeit these not considered to alter the officer conclusions on the application. The application site comprises 3 separate buildings and the 5-court access route service yard on the south side of Friar Street in central Reading. Number 144 Friar Street is the former Bugle Public House, which was added to the council's list of locally important buildings in July of this year. Neither of the other buildings are listed or locally listed. As per the previous item on the agenda this evening, the parent company of the applicant also owns sites to the east. However, as per the main report, officers note that this and the neighbouring proposals have been submitted as entirely separate applications and must be considered on their own individual merits. So next slide, please. Full plan permission is sought for the partial demolition of the Bugle and the entire demolition of the other 2 buildings. It's proposed to erect a replacement 7-storey building to provide a hotel with 163 bed spaces across 8 floors of accommodation. As already alluded to, the proposals involve the partial demolition of the Bugle, However, the Friar Street frontage, the original component along Fife Court, and a series of internal existing beams and columns will be retained and incorporated within the scheme. In short, officers are supportive of this approach, and subject to conditions, the proposals would meet the policy EN4 tests. It is also considered that the scheme successfully incorporates the bugle into the proposed Friar Street streetscape. In general scale and massing terms, whilst undoubtedly a significant addition to the south side of Friar Street, in particular from the west looking eastwards, there is an existing varied streetscape and the proposal is essentially 5 stories along the Friar Street facade, with an additional 2 stories set back from the front and side elevations. And on balance, it is considered that the proposed scale and massing is satisfactory. So next slide, please. In terms of the detailed design and materials, Friar Street elevation has been carefully considered with the existing rhythm of the street and the buildings maintained, with the front facade of the building broken down into separate distinct elements, which are all well defined and demonstrate a richness in quality which is supported. The hotel itself is shown to include all the complementary elements one would expect with any hotel. In particular, the ground floor includes a welcoming double height space towards the Friar Street frontage, which would provide an ancillary lounge, bar and restaurant together with the reception area for the hotel. The hotel use itself will be secured in full via Section 106 legal agreement. In conclusion, whilst the officer report again does identify some harmful impacts, officers consider that the conflicts with the development plan are outweighed by the benefits of the proposals. These include the visual improvement to Friar Street through the high quality design, the suitable partial retention of the bugle, and also the introduction of the proposed hotel use. Accordingly, full plan permission is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and the Section 106 obligations summarised within the reports. Thank you.
Thank you for your detailed report. Councillor Hornsby-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. As with item 9, I think this is a planning application that really needs to be supported. I think the key words that Mr. Markwell used there were richness and quality, and I thoroughly endorse that. This is a key location in the town centre. I went on the site visit, and I think what this application is doing is bringing together a number of underused spaces. It's developing it in a sympathetic way. It's reusing those spaces. I saw a number of interiors that were disused or underused. I think it's sympathetic to the overall street scene, to the heritage as well, and it's compatible with the heights of the buildings in the surrounding area. So I think overall it adds very much to the offer that Reading has. I think the way that they have responded to our recent sort of decision to locally list the bugle is very, very sympathetic, and it's exciting. It creates an atrium, and it's been retained. The heritage aspect of that's been retained in a very creative way, and I welcome that. It also meets hotel need in Reading that we need, and it provides high quality 4-star hotel accommodation, which is going to be of an advantage to Reading. I particularly welcome the aspect of the sustainability of energy, which is discussed in the supplementary report that's come to us, and the way that the energy efficiency of the new building will be far superior than what we've got at the moment. As other councillors have said throughout this process, I think we've had a very positive engagement from the developers on this, and I also agree with the officer's response to the late expressions of concern. This is a long-term project, it's a major investment, and I welcome it, and I look forward to it taking place.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland.
Thank you. Once again, as ward councillors, both Councillor Page and I are happy about this and like the relationship with it coming next door. As Councillor Hornsby Smith mentioned, the acceptance and working with the Horn and also further with 5 Court that was also locally listed there and retaining some of those facades was really important. I would go further to say that the retention of 5 Court is actually quite important because courts had a historic part of Reading's history as in many towns. But I really do appreciate the developers in particular taking on that and accepting the fact that we chose to locally list not only the Horn but those buildings just behind that and in working with them. The Beagle, I'm sorry, I'm Horn on the brain, I'm sorry, I don't know. Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I get them a little bit confused. Anyway, moving on. Yes, indeed. I might also, I just wanted to mention a couple of things and possibly ask back with the officer in regards to the public art strategy, in particular with this development to be as a condition and condition number 8. Because I think that, and I'm a little bit concerned about 5 Court too, in that the proper care of that as a means of egress and everything around the hotel is taken care of. I do think there's an opportunity that I believe probably developers have heard before about the wall on the east side of 5 Court, which is kind of bland and kind of plain, being an expression that could be used as public art too. So I did want to bring that up. Beyond that, I'm really pleased. Yes, the BREEAM excellent requirements that have been attached in our update pack for both this and the prior development item 9 were both welcome. So thank you very much. I look forward to this also. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, just in terms of public art, Councillor Rowland, obviously condition 8 has covered it's paragraph 6.17 of the main report. Officers have deliberately left it quite open in terms of flexibility in terms of the actual nature of the public art contribution. I would say though that I think you referenced the east side of 5 Court. That's outside of this application boundary, is as per the previous item where a similar condition is secured. But there's definitely scope within this red line boundary for there to be a form of a public art contribution and provision, and that will be secured via the condition. Thanks.
Councillor Page.
Chair, I agree with all of the comments made by colleagues earlier, so I won't repeat them. Can I just focus in and express one element of concern on page 155? It relates to the comments that our transport officers have made and remain sort of still hanging because the process will involve discussions elsewhere at traffic management sub around a traffic regulation order. The concern I would express is the reference in paragraph 4.3 to the applicant ideally seeking to amend existing restrictions, allowing for, quotes, an extended dwell time and a daytime loading window. Now, this raises enormous concerns. Friar Street is a road that is a street that regularly disrupts the flow of buses because of the way in which deliveries are not currently complying with existing restrictions. And to allocate and perhaps displace, I don't know, some other deliveries is something that gives me great concern. So with the applicants in the public gallery, through you, Chair, I would say to them, they need to ensure that people like myself and colleagues who will be on the traffic management subcommittee will at some stage no doubt have to consider advertising a traffic regulation order, and we would only reach that position if we're satisfied that it will not cause problems elsewhere in Friar Street. So I know there are pre-commencement conditions. It also relates to the construction method statement, because as I understand it, this was the delivery and servicing plan is when the building is up. And of course, there's a whole issue of constructing the development there. So there's more information and more work to be done. So I would just flag up that concern. It will be of huge importance to our public transport operations, and therefore it's not a minor issue. So, Chair, in welcoming the application, in no way detracting from the very positive comments that have been made, I would just use this opportunity with the applicants there to flag that up, and any further information they want to send myself and colleagues who have a close interest in this would be appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Any officers note the concerns?
Yeah, so obviously within paragraph 4.3, it's probably pertinent to note for the purposes of this application that the applicant has considered it on the basis of the TRO possibly not going ahead, and they've considered it from the perspective of using 5 courts as well. So they've covered both scenarios. So there's no implication in terms of the application in front of you, but it's kind of for further discussion under separate legislation.
Thank you. All right, thank you. I'll just round up on this. I mean, bit of slippage with Councillor Rowland mentioning the Horn. I mean, it was because we're interested in working class heritage pubs in the town centre. I do it with the employment skills plans. I tend to call it the education and skills plans because I think vocational skills are education. So that's where we go. I can remember when this first came back to PAC about the local listing of the Bugle. Evelyn Williams at CAC was bought it, and grateful for her to bringing it. And I think I commented that night that working class heritage is often unrecorded, no photographic evidence and such like, so it's hard to prove. So we push back on the local listing to that, and I think it's very important that we protect working class heritage. The developers took that on board, and they've now made the Bugle from ground up to eaves, rafters, all look very, very pretty, and it will be centre point of the hotel reception, and I truly thank them for that. So as you can guess, which way I will be voting as chair for and fully support this application. So do we support the aye? There you go. Thank you. I'll turn my mic off again. Nothing too controversial tonight, is there? Oh, we've got another one linked to the it's item 11. Another one linked to the High Street Heritage Action Zone. And it's yeah, who's this?
Good evening, Chair. I'm Natalie Weeks, case officer for this application. It's a listed building consent. The proposal is for works at various locations, including restoration, repairs and cleaning to the Zinzan chest tomb, the Jubilee Cross, the Simian Monument and the Queen Victoria statue. Monuments 1 and 2 are located in St Mary Butts and Castle Street Conservation Area, and monuments 3 and 4 are located in Marketplace, London Street Conservation Area. The monuments have fallen into various states of disrepair and require works to restore them to their original condition. Works form part of the Reading High Street Heritage Action Zone project to form part of a heritage-led regeneration initiative led by Historic England and working with Reading Borough Council to enhance Reading's heritage. Funding has been made available for the proposed schemes of works. An update report was provided to confirm that additional material specifications and schemes of work have been amended to avoid pre-commencement material conditions. The Conservation and Urban Design Officer is satisfied with the materials that have been presented for review. I apologise for one typo. It should read Assistant Director, title to Assistant Director of Planning, Transport and Public Protection Services. Apologise for the typo. Subsequent to the additional information submitted, the recommendation remains as set out in the main agenda committee report and does not impact any of the conclusions reached. The recommendation is to grant approval for listed buildings consent, subject to condition for the materials to match and as specified, and for the in accordance with the specific scheme, schedules of work and the approved plans. The works are considered to have a positive impact on the character and appearance of the conservation areas and would preserve the architectural and historic interest of the monuments. The diocese should be informed of any proposed works within St Mary's churchyard, which is maintained by the council and the church. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland.
I'd like to thank the officer for her report, and also really just to commend this to colleagues. It's very exciting, something that Councillor Page and I started up about 2.5 years ago with the High Street Heritage Action Zone. We're very eager to see the effect that that could have in paying attribute to our heritage in Reading and really drawing it out and highlighting it. In terms of the things that we were talking about earlier, about the town center and people really wanting to see that kind of, I guess, get spiffed up, I guess, was kind of what Councillor Yeo was kind of, I guess, this way to surmise that. This is another way of doing this, and it's really fabulous. I'm really delighted also with the update report too, that talks about and addresses the particular issues with the Simeon Monument. Excuse me, in regards to the market, and also to highlight and thank the Kudo for the fact that he specified something about no concrete mortar being used. Concrete mortar is something that, if we had not had a Kudo, might very well have been used, and I'm very, very glad to see that, because concrete mortar over the years has probably done a heck of a lot of damage to some of the items that we're looking at here. So I would like to thank him for that, and really look forward to this, and along with the other items that are mentioned in item 3.3 about the other things that I'm sorry, probably not that number, but we're talking about the other heritage lamps and things like that are also coming forward with this, with the High Street Heritage Action Zone. So really excited for this. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. It's just one small point, but in 2.3, it mentions the cross was erected in 1887 to commemorate the completion of the restoration of St Mary's Church and the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria. It should, in my opinion, be the Golden Jubilee, because the diamond was 1897. Only a small thing, but I thought it's worth pointing out. Okay.
Noted, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Factually correct, no doubt. I fully support this as well, obviously, because it's the HS project, which I'm very fond of. I would also, on a separate note, like to see the May 1 Lion getting its care and attention, which is due, and I think that's up in the spring for having its repair and all that, so it's good. I think it's the same company that's carrying out the works, so that's all good. Right, okay, so we support recommended. Yeah, we do. Aye, moving on. Thank you. Right, okay. We've got a declared interest, which is Councillor Emerson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was late to the meeting, but I'm predetermined and on advice of the Chair will leave for this item. Okay.
So we lose another valued member of the Planning Applications Committee as she walks towards the door. Ethne Humphreys is presenting this one.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, and I hope you can hear me okay. This is an application for the Council's own housing development located on the corner of North Street and Whaledale Street. Members may recall that a scheme for 41 affordable housing units was discussed at Planning Committee in March 2020 and subsequently approved. The scheme approved is currently under construction and, as can be seen from the site photos, is a significant way through the build process. This application proposes a reduction in the number of units from the previously approved 41 to 37. This is to allow for design changes to accommodate additional solar panels and air source heat pumps, as well as other minor internal and external changes as set out in the main agenda report. The units would all remain as affordable housing units at social rented levels, and the additional sustainability measures would result in welcome positive sustainability and energy gains. There is an update report for this item which provides additional commentary regarding sustainability measures, and the recommendation is to grant full planning permission as per the main agenda report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Are we all in support of the recommendations? Aye, agreed. Excellent, excellent. Somebody want to go get Councillor Emerson? Okay. I'll wait until we have a full house again. I know, I got that bit. We'll pick that up in the minutes. Next pack. Alison, yeah, Alison. Chop, come on. Thank you. So we move on to item 13, which is 220 Elgar Road, the old driving test centre, and it's Alison to do the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me, and I have to apologise. I was in control of the photos at the beginning and it all went belly up. Thankfully, Steve stepped in to share the photos with you, so apologies for that. The application site is currently occupied, as you've just mentioned, Chair, by the driving test centre on the western side of Elgar Road South, adjacent to 7 detached houses and a block of flats. Immediately to the rear are 2 dwellings, and beyond those the public open space of Waterloo Meadows, which is a designated local green space and a major landscape feature. And opposite is an industrial estate. The proposal comprises a 3-storey residential flat block consisting of 16 units, 8 one-beds, 7 two-beds and 1 3-bed, with 12 car parking spaces and landscaping. An earlier scheme, almost identical to the current application, was refused for a number of matters as set out in 3.1 of the report, relating in summary to design, layout, amenity space, cycle parking and lack of obligations for affordable housing, carbon offsetting and construction skills. The current scheme includes a number of amendments, including an amended internal layout to bring cycle storage inside the building, improved internal layout for a more secure entrance, additional side-facing windows for improved natural surveillance, amended landscaping to remove private patios and amenity spaces to the front and to ensure that those areas would be for communal space, removal of part of the first floor element nearest to 224 Elgar Road, the 7 detached houses, some amendments to the roof form and some internal reconfiguration. The majority of these amendments were presented to the inspector as part of the appeal against the previous refused scheme and were considered acceptable by the inspector, who in turn did not uphold the reasons for refusal apart from those with regard to the lack of a Section 106 agreement. And therefore, there were no obligations at that time for affordable housing, carbon offsetting and construction skills. In addition, the inspector referred to the need for a leisure contribution to mitigate for the limited on-site external amenity space. The appeal decision, as at Appendix 1 of the report, has been a significant material consideration in the assessment of the current scheme. As set out in paragraphs 6.58 to 6.63 of the main report, the proposal now includes all of the required obligations, including a 25% on-site affordable housing offer and deferred payment mechanism, despite the submission of a viability assessment demonstrating that the scheme is not viable. The recommendation also includes for securing an open space contribution for enhancements to facilities within Waterloo Meadows, which, as shown in the update report, page 29, is within a very short walk from the application site. This is as well as obligations for carbon offsetting and construction skills. Having regard to all matters raised and assessing it against the relevant national and local policies and the appeal decision, it is concluded that the scheme overall is acceptable and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions as in the recommendation in the main report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hornsby-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier on in this meeting, we were discussing about the application and success of policies. And we were also told that each application should be considered on its own merits. Therefore, I don't agree with the officer's report that suggests that because the inspector's report didn't cover the issue of H2, policy H2, that we cannot raise it now. The refusal grounds that we gave at the time were mainly about overdevelopment of the site. Therefore, it's obvious that the inspector is only going to consider those grounds on which a refusal was made. So my conclusion is that we can, if we wish to, object on other grounds too. My concern is about the housing mix here and about the precedent that if we approve this application, that would set and the damage it would do to the integrity of policy H2, which states, whenever possible, residential development should contribute towards meeting the needs of the mix of housing set out in figure 4.6. That's in the local plan, in particular for family houses of 3 or more bedrooms. As a minimum, on new developments for 10 or more dwellings outside the central area and outside district shopping areas, planning decisions will ensure that over 50% of dwellings will be of 3 bedrooms or more housing, having regard to all other material considerations. The reason for wanting to enforce this is because when I write on behalf of my constituents to councillor services, and I get a reply from council officers saying that of 329 people who are on the waiting list for 3-bedroom properties, since January 2020, only I think it's 12 or maybe 15 people have actually been able to move into those sorts of properties. The need identified in policy H2 for 3-bedroom accommodation is acute. This proposal offers 8 1-bedroom, 7 2-bedrooms and 1 3-bedroom flat. One 3-bedroom flat is an 1/8 of the requirement that would be met by policy H2. Therefore, I would oppose this application on the grounds that it completely fails to meet and uphold the standards which we need and the people of Reading need to deliver 3-bedroom properties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Joe.
I was going to take the questions and then go back to.
And then go. I mean, I'd be supportive of councillors' opinions on that have just been expressed. I'll go through my stuff. Yeah, go on then, and then we can do it all together. I agree. I think it was good to see the original proposal refused. I don't agree with the inspector's conclusions, having looked into it. I think I think residents will disagree as well. I think residents are content, even when they don't like a decision, when it's made by people they've elected, they understand that we were locally elected. When it's made by officers, they understand they're locally employed. When it's made by an inspector that's come in and disagrees, often on subjective opinions, I think they get quite cross. And I think this was potentially subjective opinions that were given by the inspector, not necessarily planning. But it has been slightly amended. But we're also given an either or on affordable housing in the recommendation, which is either to take a 2-bedroom unit at 80% or a deferred payment mechanism. I don't know if we're looking to approve this, I don't know what members are going to be thinking. The deferment comes with a risk, as we discussed and you outlined in your answer earlier, Chair, whereas the, let me get this right, the on-site unit of affordable housing of a 2-bedroom unit at 80% comes with no risk, but is higher than the other 70% units. I guess I would, if we're to approve, I guess I would err away from risk and at least take the unit that we're offered, even though it's at 80 rather than 70. But if we're looking to approve, we're looking to approve something that isn't policy compliant in terms of affordable housing, isn't policy compliant in terms of housing mix, isn't policy compliant in terms of amenity space or the environment. So instead, it takes in a cash payment for open space, for carbon offsetting, for potentially a deferred payment for the affordable housing. So instead of getting those things right up front, we're offered a cash payment. Careful what words I use. That can't really be the future of Reading, to accept substandard buildings but take a bit of cash to cover that substandard nature of them. We may be forced to by inspectors' decisions sometimes, but we should fight against that. And so I'd be really interested to hear officers' opinions on the matters raised over housing mix and the others. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair. I value both Councillor Hornsby-Smith and Councillor Williams' comments too. And Councillor Williams took Councillor Hornsby-Smith's point a bit further and discussed another situation that I also share concerns with in regards to the outdoor amenity space and the £12,500 contribution that was to be made for that in section 6.32. But it does open up the fact that I think throughout this report, section 6.29 to 6.33 talk about the inferior level of outdoor space, and that relation to policy H10. And then again in section 6. Hang on, just bear with me. I'm sorry, page 295. And 6.63 policy EN 9 about the provision of open space, where I feel that this really fails. The mitigation is given in the we were given further detail about the mitigation of the use of Waterloo Meadows to mitigate that outdoor space, that loss of outdoor space where they're supposed to be able to dry clothes, have outdoor play area, refuse storage, all of these kinds of things. And 190 meters walk away, going down the street, back out and around, you can access Waterloo Meadows, which the crime of the century to me is that Waterloo Meadows is one board width of the fence from the back of this property or the corner of this property. I realize it's kind of hemmed in there with properties on both sides of that corner there, but to me, that's a real crying shame. Waterloo Meadows is wonderful. Waterloo Meadows should be able to be used, but you're right there on the corner and 2 inches away. You've got to walk 190 meters to get to. So all of that sums up that I see that it fails to address H10, it fails to address EN9 and CC7, CC8, EN14. All of those things I think are impacted by this inability to provide what I feel is adequate outdoor space. When we're building new buildings, I think Councillor Hornsby Smith is quite right. You know, we need to be, we have these requirements. We need to be building to what we are requiring. I have not gone into the affordable housing. To me, that is a little bit more borderline, but indeed, once again, it has come in under the situation. Now, so you know, to throw that on too, I've got those three issues. Councillor Williams also had that caused me to sit down there and want to say that I would be likely to refuse this application. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Any other comments, questions? No. I'd invite Steve to comment on this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think officers will certainly agree with councillors that the appeal decision was certainly a very disappointing one. I think that's certainly reflected in the way it contradicts the reasons for refusal, which were obviously the considered opinion of officers and the committee previously. And certainly we would not, obviously disagree with the clear need for 3-bedroom units and the policy, and as you say, policy H2 is clear on that as well. I think it is important to say that, being careful not to we're not here to disagree or argue with the committee. You're entitled to reach your own conclusion tonight, and that's an important principle as well. But we should make it, just remind the committee through you, Chair, that the appeal decision is a material consideration in the determination of this application. Whilst the previous decision didn't raise H2 and the dwelling mix and the size of dwellings as a reason for refusal, the general sort of principle will be if it's not raised, then the assumption would be that there's no objection from the authority. And there's no particular material change, no significant change between the previous appeal scheme and the current scheme in that sense. So the policies haven't changed, the local plan remains the same, and the circumstances on site are also the same. So I suppose our advice has to be, there is a heightened risk probably if this was to be refused and went to appeal, possibly a heightened risk of further appeal being allowed. There's also, I should probably mention, a risk of an award of costs, which we have to at least be aware of, certainly having all the sort of facts in front of us if making a different decision. But as I say, it's not certainly not our place to argue with or to try and to convince you otherwise, but that would be our advice, and our sort of need to put that before you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any other comments before we? I'm reading the room. I'm guessing that we're going to call a vote to refuse. Okay, so all those in favour. Can we state the reasons for refusal, Councillor?
H2 and amenity, and the ones that Karen listed, Councillor Rowland listed.
Yeah, and mix.
Chair, I'm happy to repeat those.
Councillor Rowland, if you'd like to repeat for the officers. You'd like to repeat? It was amenities, amenity space, and housing mix. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, H10, EN9 in particular. I also mentioned CC7, 8, and EN14 too.
So all those in favour of refusing the application? Aye. Thank you, Pac. Any in favour of the application? Unanimous it was against, I think. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Carno. Did I miss? Did you want to speak on that? Did I miss? No, okay. Okay. Moving on. We've done 14, so moving on to 15, which is Kings Meadow, Woodland, Napier Road. Get some good reports back from this place. Okay. Who have we got? Bethany, I think, is representing this one.
Thank you, Chair. Temporary planning permission is sought for the temporary use of a part of Kings Meadow to host the Best Parties Ever Christmas event. This is a largely annual temporary Christmas event where Christmas parties take place within a temporary marquee erected on site. Due to the timing of the submission of the application, and as can be seen on the photos, perhaps we could move on to the next slide, please. The marquee is up. However, this doesn't change the recommendation or affect the conditions. The information submitted with this application is in line with that provided and approved under previous years with the same conditions proposed. The land will be restored to its former use by the 31st of December 2022. No objections have been received by consultees, with necessary mitigation being secured by conditions. Furthermore, no neighbour letters of representations have been received. As such, the recommendation is to grant temporary planning permission as per the main agenda report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Page.
Chair, I just wanted to support the recommendations. As someone who used to represent the Napier Road area and the nearby Lucinia View flats, there were some original concerns going back many years from local residents. Those complaints have diminished as the management of this event has improved. They deliver, like the Rock Festival, a well-honed service and have had much experience in managing Napier Road and the accessing and servicing of this development. So it doesn't come as any surprise to me, Chair, that there haven't been any complaints. It reflects a well-run operation, which, with the exception, I think, of 2020, was it, has run very smoothly for nearly 20 years. So, Chair, I would support this. Thank you.
So, anybody else? I'll take it with no. We're supporting the recommendation. I think I've had nothing but good reports from this place actually. So, no feedback from ward councillors or anything. Okay. All right. There you go. Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and I hope I did okay. So, see you later. Thank you.